I got a comment on last Wednesday's video, the video in which I discussed which Lando actor do I prefer. And while I do want to go ahead and do this with some other characters that have been recast, there was one comment on the video that deserves a full response, not just a reply. So welcome to episode 2 of the Jedi Ranger Comment Response. I'm JohnBerry555. Yep, it's been a while since I've done one of these, but hey, this comment deserves it. So I'm going to basically quote each section of the comment. It'll be flashing up on the screen, of course, as well. And then I'm going to give you my response, because there's a couple of sections in the comment that I want to break down. So let's begin with the first part. Quote, if Lucasfilm and Disney wanted to get back in the Star Wars business, they would stop introducing other characters into their storyline and allow the backstories of current characters be played out, unquote. So, there's a couple things here. One, they've never gotten out of the Star Wars business, they're still in it. And two, Star Wars as a universe is very large and malleable. You can do almost anything with it. And if the creatives, Disney, Lucasfilm, all the writers and all that, limit themselves to just the existing characters all the time, things will get stale. There will be severe restrictions, or sometimes it can be very good to have some kind of restriction to keep you in check, to keep you in a direction. You gotta let things be explored. You got to try new things. And sometimes, too, if you want to tell another existing character story, sometimes you may have to introduce a new character in order to get that. This is actually probably the most neutral part of the comment, and that's saying a lot. So I won't spend too much more time on it, but guess what? They have done this. The commenter even points it out that Disney has gone back, Lucas has gone back and told stories about characters' backstories. But we'll get into that in a later. But the next part of the comment is this, quote, the fan base would appreciate the love thrown at older characters, unquote. They've done this, but as OP demonstrates, fans have rejected several of these stories. Not as a whole, but groups of fans have. And I think it's safe to say that nostalgia will bring in some views. But as I already alluded to, that can only do so much, and eventually things will get stale and people will lose interest. And also, how do you define love as an older character? Because for one fan, it might be, just more of the same old stuff. For another fan, it might be doing something new with it. So, there's more of this stuff, like fans disagreeing, I will bring up later on in this video. But now we need to go on to the really problematic, in air quotes, parts of the comment. How problematic? Different story. Probably not really that problematic, but I do think it does hint at a larger problem in the Star Wars fandom, which is where we're going to end up heading to. So, quote, plus, Andor Season 2 sucked, unquote. Yeah, no, it did not suck. I loved Andor Season 2. And while I definitely prefer Season 1 over Season 2, Season 2 pretty much continues everything that made Season 1 great. It's just at a more rapid pace, which does not give the events, I think, enough time to marinate. There's actually one person online who doesn't like Andor because it's too slow. Meanwhile, I'm like, I like the slowness, and I kind of wish Season 2 was a bit slower. But can I say something? Perhaps that more quick-paced nature better conveys the chaotic nature of the rebellion against the Empire's oppression. I have a full review on Andor Season 1, Season 2, and as a whole, each individual episode, so go check those out for my complete thoughts. And by the way, there's a lot of hours of Andor coverage on my channel. And let's go into the next bit. Quote, the end of the Bad Batch, aka Omega story, sucked, unquote. First of all, they forgot to put correct pronunciation marks. They forgot the apostrophe S for Omegas. They got Omega, they got the S, but they forgot the apostrophe, so it's aka Omega's story, not the story that is of Omega belongs to Omega, rather it's, I don't know how, because he missed on the grammar, or they, because I don't know what they identify as. I guess they were looking for maybe a rogue spec op team shooting stuff up, I guess, or just a spec op team shooting stuff up, which is actually kind of what we got. But let me guess, you didn't want a clone girl. I guarantee you that was the problem. I also have my reviews of the Bad Batch on my channel, but in short, the Bad Batch is a story about a hardened group of soldiers finding themselves taking care of a young girl, who is also their older sister, but still younger than them. And this is all without time travel or emotional stunting. And I think Reiko's probably the closest to being emotionally stunted in the group. And I thought Bad Batch was really good, and so was that focus on Omega. She's our point of view character for the story. Yes, you can have an ensemble character, but oftentimes you do still need that point of view. Now let's go on to the next part of the comment. Yep, we got more parts coming up. Quote, Ahsoka, aka Sabine show, sucked. The list goes on and on. Unquote. Okay. Gee, the show that everyone expected to be a spiritual successor to Star Wars Rebels, a honorary season 5 of Rebels, ended up focusing a lot on Sabine Wren, a character introduced and created for Star Wars Rebels, and her interactions with the titular character of Ahsoka, who is, by the way, Ahsoka Tano, Dave Filoni's favorite character. His his own character he created that he's going to do whatever he can to keep her in stories. And, okay, maybe it wasn't the strongest, but I enjoyed it. I saw it had some interesting concepts. It's a show that's probably leading to the most weird aspects of the Force, besides maybe the Acolyte, which, surprisingly, this commenter never touched on the Acolyte once. I'm kind of surprised on that, given the whole attitude. But all that to say is, gee, the show everyone expected to be a spiritual successor to Rebels ended up focusing a lot on the character from Rebels. I mean, we all expected that, right? Right? At least I did. Everyone in my circle did. Let's go into the next part of the comment, because I could go on and on about that. Quote, Boba Fett sucked, unquote. This is exactly what OP wanted. Stories with existing characters. And this is a character that existed since the original trilogy. Ahsoka was introducing the Clone Wars and Sabine in Rebels. No, why I blinked though. And even Andor, Cassian was introduced in Rogue One. So, no new Star Wars apparently. Boba Fett was introduced in the second Star Wars film ever produced. And so, sounds like this is exactly what OP wanted. And, while I agree it's probably the weakest of the Disney Plus shows, it was rejected by fans. OP himself is rejecting it. And people like the OP will say they want fan service, but then they will reject said fan service, claiming they only like if it's good writing. But guess what? Fan service as a whole is not known for being good writing. And while that doesn't mean a writer can't do it really well and make a compelling story, and the story rather than the fan pandering is the main draw, you can't say you want it and reject fan service for it as often. And especially if that's that condition that you never mentioned beforehand. I feel like I'm trying to be a little bit sarcastic. A little bit petty. Oh well. All that to say is, you wanted fan service, and you got fan service exactly how fan service is. So slightly better fan service than sometimes we get. Let's move on to the next comment, which, oh man, even better. A part of the comment I should say. Quote, Obi-Wan, aka Young Princess Leia Fairy Tale, sucked, unquote. First of all, forget the hyphen in Obi-Wan, so he's disrespecting Obi-Wan's name. And 2, he's going by Ben at this point. And this is even more so what OP wanted, and once again, they rejected it. It's literally the backstory for Old Ben Kenobi and Princess Leia, 2 characters introduced in the very first Star Wars film ever made back in 1977. And it shows why she trusts him, why she would go to him for help, and served to her father during the Clone Wars. But it also explains her fairly ecstatic reaction when Luke told her that he was rescuing her on the Death Star with Ben Kenobi. And she was like, Ben Kenobi here, not Obi-Wan, Ben. She knew who Ben was. The hologram, that was just a formal request. And Leia by New Hope has already has served as a senator, so she knows how to do things formally. So that's exactly what he wanted. Or OP wanted, I should say. Again, I don't know what they identify as. Should I also mention that Star Wars is literally a modern day fairy tale? And holding that against it is like complaining about Star Wars being sci-fi, or using the hero's journey, or found family, or is seeking further inspiration from Flash Gordon or Akira Kurosawa. That is literally part of the DNA of Star Wars. It's what makes Star Wars Star Wars. And that's kind of funny. Like, This shows that are literally building off of tropes and inspirations from Star Wars inspiration, he's rejecting. That is literally what they wanted. And it's curious. Also, notice how none of these comments that OP had mention what sucked or what the problem with these shows were. It's a bit suspicious. And I'm not even getting into the quality of these shows, or I have a little bit, but okay, some of them could have definitely, like Boba Fett and one could have done, I think, with an additional revision or two, some a little more proofreading and all that. But that doesn't mean it sucked, it just means it had room for improvement. Very different things. Now let's move on to the next one, which is probably my least favorite part of the comment that would really motivate me to make this video. So, quote, Disney and Lucasfilm, you have an abused loyal fan base, and all for what? A tattered and bruised reputation. If you want to regain the glory and heart of Star Wars, reach out and pay me to reunite the fans, unquote. Okay, first of all, you have abused a loyal fan base. You don't need that article there, and if you did put the article there, it should have been "and," not "a." Again, I'm just breaking into everything that he does because he's a, she, whatever. It, at this point, could be a bot for all I know. Because why not? I'm falling for the rage bait. Talk on that a bit later. Such entitlement, though, from this. Us fans are not entitled to Star Wars. This actually seems to be a problem in a lot of popular franchises, where the fans think the franchise belongs to them. But guess what? Legally, the franchise belongs to the individuals or corporations that hold the copyright for them, unless said franchises are in the public domain. Culturally, this may be some of a different answer, but guess what? Every single fan has a different relationship with Star Wars and has different opinions on the direction the franchise is currently heading and how they would like it to head. Just because OP thinks they can make it so all fans like Star Wars, I guarantee you that there will be fans who don't like the direction that OP would take the franchise. Just as you know, if I was in charge of Star Wars, not everyone would like what I would want to do in the stories that I would like to tell. Yes, I'm going to be making a video if I was in that position for the sequel trilogy, but I don't expect everyone to like it. And yes, some may like it. My ideas, OP's ideas, that may be the case, but not everyone. And some will not like it simply because it's not what they grew up with. It's new stuff. Literally. There are people, even if it's exactly the same as the new stuff, as the old stuff, I should say, will hate it just to be contrarians. There are people like that. People will hate on things just to hate on them for no apparent reason. But let's step away from Star Wars for a moment, for there is another franchise that experiences this exact same problem, but the fans are dealing with their disgruntlement in a very different ways. And no, it's not Star Trek. They're behaving just like us Star Wars fans, and it's not Marvel and DC, for the exact same reasons. It's actually the Thomas fandom. Yep, there is a fandom for a franchise, a kid franchise about talking trains. There is a lot of disgruntlement with the fans about the direction that Mattel has been taking Thomas the Tank Engine and Friends. Wow, I'm using a really old title for the TV show for a couple of years now. It's been a while. Actually, it goes even all back to the hit era too It goes back quite far. Anyhow, and while there are some fans that are making video essays or complained videos and posts, there's also a lot of fan fiction. The Thomas fandom is perhaps one of the most creative fandoms out there. Yes, we got a lot of creativity in the Star Wars fandom. I recently just saw on Facebook a post talking about a girl who, actually probably teen, I would say, young lady. Actually, I'm not sure, but she basically in 1977 went to Star Wars multiple times so she could take notes to make a Halloween costume of a Rebel flight uniform. Before anything came out on VHS, before any flashcards, trading cards, before other material, before toys, she had to go to the theater to find it. The post was talking about how it's showing, hey, girls have liked Star Wars since 1977. But I bring that up to show that, yes, we do have creativity in Star Wars, and we do get plenty of Star Wars fan fiction writers as well. But the Thomas fandom, their community is, I would say, dominated by the fan fiction aspect for their own creative pursuits. not Star Wars so much. We're dominated a lot more by video essays, by memes, that kind of stuff. Not that that stuff isn't in the Thomas fandom as well. Everything you can find in one fandom, you'll find in the other. But I'm talking about what is the most common thing you typically see among fan creations. It's creative stuff. It's stories that. There are countless channels, blogs, web pages, what you give, writing their own stories and often filming them. Some of them use practical models, so like they're making their own models or they're buying like Backman or something like that. Some of them are using the merchandising and toys, and some are making their own 3D models. Sometimes they're doing other animation in a 3D animation software themselves, or they're using a video game to render. Like there's so much stuff there. And many of these people, they started out as kids and were inspired by the stories of Thomas to write, to film, to do all that themselves. But others are adults who grew up with the franchise. Maybe like they started as a kid, was inspired, but for whatever reason did not like the direction the franchise was going, and they decided to tell their own stories. And many of these, they are parents, so they're having their own kids in mind, much like how Reverend Wilbert Audrey had his son Christopher in mind when he created the Railway series and began telling his own stories. The second volume of the Railway series, Thomas the Tank Engine, literally begins, "Dear Christopher," ends with, "Your loving father." The father is the author, and Christopher is the author's real-life son. And many of these people, that's inspiration. They have their own kids in mind. And of course, like any fandom, they have their problems. But as a whole, their response to not liking the current stuff is not to bitch and complain, but to create their own stuff, to let them use what they like, what they love about the franchise, to inspire their own storytelling. Sometimes this is within the existing lore of Thomas and Friends and the Railway series, which, by the way, the lore of the Railway series is surprisingly detailed. Reverend Wilbur Audrey and his brother George Audrey wrote a lot of stuff down, and so did Christopher Audrey once he started contributing his own as well. But many of the Thomas and Friends fandom people have moved on to creating their own original stories. Sometimes with talking trains, sometimes not, but they had got their start with Thomas. The Thomas Cynic actually has made a 2-hour video on the history of Thomas fan content. Go check that out if you're interested. But I bring all this up because they are turning their disgruntlement into creativity. They are not stewing in their discontent or even in their anger like the Star Wars fandom has often been. They are celebrating what they love, which is what I actually try to do on my own channel with Star Wars, and letting that love inspire them in their own creative passions. Behind the scenes, I'm working on my own original sci-fi story, inspired by my love of Star Wars and Star Trek and some other things as well. I'm letting my love of franchises inspire me. And that's what they're doing. They're letting their love inspire them in their own creative passions. And while we do have a fair amount of examples of that in the Star Wars fandom, on YouTube, Penta Patrol Star Wars seems like a good example, but we are in our discourse, we're dominated by complainers and rage baiters rather than lovers and creators. Heck, I fell for the rage bait in making this video. That's what this person was trying to do. But joke's on them. I'm using it to be creative. I'm responding, trying to be insightful, thoughtful about the subject. So in some ways, we do need to be more like the Thomas fandom and letting our love for Star Wars inspire us rather than our disgruntlement hold us back. Let the creators, let the lovers dominate the fandom. Celebrate what they do. I know Disney is fairly copyright stringent, probably more so than Mattel, but celebrating what we love over stewing in over what we don't is how we create a better fandom. This does not mean we can't be critical over issues in the franchise and be honest in our feedback about stories, but remember, every fan is different and every fan is a human. Remember the human. We have all different opinions, we all have different opinions, expectations, likes and dislikes, and we need to respect that. This is why in my reviews, I try to frame things from my perspective. It's, I like this, I didn't like this. I found the use of blank to be compelling. I found this aspect of the story to be weak. This story did not live up to my expectations. This is why I believe they missed the mark. this is not Star Wars, but in my recent review of the Star Trek Strange New Worlds episode, We Are Starfleet, I talked about a little bit how a lot of people were disgruntled with that episode, and I think that might have been due to the fact that it was a genre episode that they wrote too much like a regular episode, in my opinion. But that's it. It's my opinion, and why I think that occurred the way it did, why people did not care for it. I'm trying to think about, how I enjoyed things and how others. I try to frame things, like, because while we can get into the technical stuff about writing, what works and what doesn't work, there is a saying, actually I'm pretty sure this is from the channel Cinema Wins, way better than Cinema Sins in my opinion, but Cinema Wins, I think, often has said in their videos, every movie is somebody's favorite. My journey is to figure out what they love about it, or something along those lines. Basically, there's always going to be something redeeming about everything. No, the Star Wars Holiday Special is a great example. It's dreadful. It is awful, very poorly put together. It's probably the most objectively bad thing in Star Wars. But guess what? It's fun. It's in the so bad it's good, and you can talk about all the good things in there. So in conclusion, I've gone kind of off track from this comment, but in a good way, because it has helped me think about the Star Wars fandom and how we could try to be not necessarily more positive, but more accepting, more creative in our passions. Letting what we like about Star Wars inspire us to be better, to create, rather than stewing in our hate and going down the path of rage baiters and grifters, which causes a lot of problem in the online commentary. The Acolyte, the Acolyte did not get a fair shake because of rage baiters and grifters who just, and the truth is, hate is easier to monetize than love. But guess what? I love Star Wars. I love Star Trek. I love the franchises I talk about, and I'm inspired by them. Yes, I'll point out when they don't meet the mark, when they fail, but I'm also not going to say, oh, this sucked, how can anyone stand it? I'm going to be like, yeah, it wasn't for me. I honestly don't understand this one, but I will leave the note that some people do like it. And this commenter, it basically said, Star Wars sucks right now, and everyone agrees with me, and everyone would like my take. Such an entitled attitude, main character syndrome, probably a bit of a narcissist as well. And yes, I am linking this video in as my reply to the comment. They're going to hear what I'm saying. But I am not revealing their user handle because I'm not going to be that rude to them. But I figure they do deserve a reply. But yeah, the truth is that in all, Star Wars is a creative thing, and because it's a creative passion, currently owned by a corporation, but even if it wasn't, some people would like the direction the story is going, some people won't. And we need to remember that. Some people may like something, some people won't. We just got to understand that. And the most important thing is, when we are saying we don't like it, remember the humor. Remember, there's going to be people who, even if you didn't like it, even if you hated something, that there are going to be people who like it. You can say, I don't understand, and invite discussion into it, but don't shut off discussion. The commenter here is basically said, Disney sucks, and if I'm in charge, things will be better. But it won't. It won't because, one, I don't know who you are, and so I don't know if you have any experience in this kind of field, but more importantly, people are different and will have different takes on things. I've probably said that a couple times, but I wanted to reiterate that, and now I want to open up the discussion. Just say whatever you want. This is an open discussion related to everything brought up in this comment response video. So join me next week. I have no idea what I'm doing. It's going to be Star Wars next Wednesday. Don't know what it's going to be yet. If I think of it, I'll try to do another review for something. We'll see. Thank you for watching my video. I do hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please be sure to give this video a like and share. Also, consider subscribing to my channel to stay up to date on all my latest content. In the meantime, thank you for watching, and as always, have a good day, a good night, wherever you are. May the Force be with you always.